All right, welcome everyone. My name is Christina Naya, and I'm the Senior Associate Director for Parent Engagement and Philanthropy. I am thrilled to have you with us this evening. As I had mentioned before, as we were opening the Zoom room, that we're dealing with, multiple time zones. So I really appreciate you're rearranging your schedules or maybe even dinner time just to be with us. So really, really excited to have you and your family become part of the UCI Anteater community, right? So today, this webinar is for you, for our parents who have students from out of state. It's designed to help you feel more comfortable with that transition, answer or ask some questions of some of our experts, and then share any additional questions or curiosities that you may have with us, and then we can go ahead and follow up and share those out in a follow-up email. So like I said, I'm with Parent and Family Engagement and Philanthropy, and I have one other team member here with me, working the controls and making sure that we're on task and on time. And her name is Marvel Johnson. And Marvel, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and just quickly introduce your role.
Happy Monday, everyone. I'm marketing events, so it's nice to have you here on the call today.
Excellent. All right. So we'll get started here today. If we can continue to the next slide, I'll do just a very quick introduction of who we're gonna be hearing from today. So we're gonna hear from Charlie Schwartz, PhD from the admissions team, David Spight, with a doctorate in education from our advising, from undergraduate advising, and Pechiney Suos from housing. She has been the coordinator for housing tours and probably wears a number of different hats within housing. So we're really excited to have those three speakers here. In addition to the speakers, we'll also have a parent panel with three fantastic parent volunteers that will introduce themselves a little bit later, and you'll have a chance at the end of the presentations and the parent panel to ask some more questions, some follow-up questions about what you've heard, or if there's something that is new to you or just popped into your head. As we're going through the webinar, please feel free to enter your questions within the Q&A section. And Marvel, our behind the scenes guru, will work with me to help make sure that our panelists and our speakers have that information. So I'll be relaying that information to all of you who are on our panel as we go along. All right. So it's a lot of intro. Really happy for you to hear from our speakers today, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Oh, before I move on, I did want to mention that we do have a special prize, and I'll mention more about it at the end of the webinar. But essentially, we have something called a parent information form. I'll share more about that. And once you fill that out, you will be entered to win this absolutely gorgeous and comfy UC Irvine themed blanket. So we'll share more about that later. Stay on. Be entered to win something that'll be shipped directly to your home. All right. Now we're here for the meat of what we're doing here. Really happy to introduce Dr. Charlie Schwartz. Dr. Charlie Schwartz is the Director of Non-Resident Admissions at the University of California, Irvine, where he and his team support undergraduate students enrolling at UCI from out of state and internationally. He has worked in higher education for over 15 years with a primary focus on admissions and enrollment management. He obtained both an MBA and PhD in higher education policy and leadership at the University of Cincinnati, and has a BA in economics and French from Ohio University. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Charlie Schwartz.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Christine. And hello, good evening to everyone. I will be brief as you've already been admitted, so a lot of the heavy lifting is already done on our part. But I did want to say congratulations again on your admission to UC Irvine. And when I say congratulations, of course, I mean congratulations to the students, but also to the parents and the adults who've helped guide all of these wonderful students to their academic achievements and to this point in their academic career. It certainly takes an entire community to help students achieve their goals. So thank you to each and every one of you for everything that you've done to help our students along their way. This year has been our most selective class, one of the most selective classes in Irvine history. We had a record-breaking applications number of 122,677 applications. And of that, we had an admit rate of just over 23%, with an average unweighted GPA of 3.9. And so this is truly one of the best classes we have ever enrolled at the University of California, Irvine, and you will be among the best and the brightest, not just in the United States, but across the entire world. So congratulations again to you. At UC Irvine, we are very proud of the opportunities we provide to our students. First and foremost, I'd just like to highlight the opportunity to explore your interests and pursue your passions, not just within your major, but also outside of your major. It is incredibly common for our students to double major or major and minor. So think biology majors taking studio art classes, or business students taking information technology courses. And so we get a lot of questions at this time of year about how to change your major or major and minor. So when I'm done here today, I'll drop a change of major website in the chat, and that'll be a great place for you all to be able to access that information as well. In addition to students pursuing their interests in the classroom, we also encourage students to pursue their interests outside of the classroom. So over 70% of our undergraduate students will be involved in research as part of their undergraduate experience, mainly through a program called the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program. And so if you're interested in learning what it means to be a researcher, maybe pursuing that PhD or going on to a master's degree, we're happy to encourage your interests outside of the classroom. And with over 600 student organizations, there are no shortage of opportunities to get involved, whether it's building professional skills or networking, or even just having fun. Our students are heavily engaged outside of the classroom as well, hanging out with their friends and exploring new opportunities. And of course, I always have to encourage study abroad, being a French major. So we have over 170 programs in 30 plus countries, including our Global Start program, where you can actually begin your first quarter at UCI by studying abroad in Italy. So if you're interested in that, I definitely encourage you to pursue that. And finally, the last thing that I'll mention is, of course, I have to remind everyone we are located in beautiful Southern California. So 300 days of sunshine a year, never any rain. Well, there's a little bit of rain, but never any snow. In addition to the beautiful weather, we've also been ranked the safest city of its size for the last 18 years by the FBI. It's a city of over 300,000 people with access to shopping, restaurants, entertainment. And of course, we're just 5 minutes from the beach as well. So it's a wonderful place to study, not just for the fun, but also because we are a major business hub. Third of Fortune 500 companies are located in Irvine, including places like Google, Boeing, Goldman Sachs, and Blizzard Entertainment. And so between the wonderful environment, the classroom activities, and all of the fun things to do outside of the class, we're really excited to have you join Irvine and take part in our Anteater community. So thanks for your time, and I'll turn it over to the rest of our panelists for the rest of our programming today.
Thank you so much, Charlie. That was a lot of really great information. And like you said, they've been accepted, but now is a great opportunity to consider the many reasons why it's a great idea to choose UC Irvine as your college. You know, I often forget that benefit of living within Southern California and having that amazing weather because I've spent most of my life here. But yeah, good plug. You know, for Irvine and for the surrounding areas. Certainly, parents, we encourage you to come to campus. You know, throughout your time, your students' time at UC Irvine, so that we can engage you here on campus. But like you're seeing here, we also find ways of reaching you other methods. But always excited to have you here on campus, and we'll talk a little bit more later about some of the ways that you can get involved. So I'm going to go ahead and transition to our next speaker. So we're going to hear from David Spight. And Dr. David Spight began his career assisting undecided students at Colorado State University. In 2008, he was named the Assistant Dean for Academic Advising and Career Counseling in the School of Undergraduate Studies at the University of Texas at Austin. Spight has been highly involved in, oh gosh, it's an acronym, and I'm sure I'm going to say this incorrectly, but it's the NACADA, the Global Community for Academic Advising, and it's a professional organization focused on enhancing academic advising. David Spight has served as chair of the Commission on Undecided Exploratory Students, a member of the council, a board member, vice president, and most recently as president from 2015 to 2016. David has presented and published articles on advising undecided students, first-generation students, assessment of advising, and integrating academic and career advising. Spight is currently the director of undergraduate, undeclared advising at UC Irvine, and is a member of the editorial board for the journal. His doctorate of education in higher education administration from the University of Alabama, and we are so honored to have him speak with us here today. So David, please take it away.
You know, that intro is probably too much. So and it's not that important. It's the least important thing you're going to hear in this webinar. I want to share just a couple of things that I like to tell students that are important, I think, to think about to be successful. And this would be whether you come to UCI or whether you go to another institution. It's that there are 3 things you need to get. And I'm so glad that you've already heard a little bit about some of these things. But the first thing you need to get is engaged in your education, right? And that's inside, outside the classroom. I'm so glad that research was mentioned. As a research university, you have this opportunity, right, in every major to help create brand new knowledge on this campus every day with the faculty that are here. And imagine how that looks when you're talking to a grad school or a med school or law school or even an employer about how you've had this experience where you created knowledge we didn't know before, right? So I think that's a great example of a way of getting engaged outside the classroom. We also know, though, that students who get involved in things like research, they're 5 times more likely to graduate, right? And I suspect that that's really the end goal, is you all want to get them to that point, right, where they graduate. So the first thing I always tell students is get engaged in your education. The second thing I always tell students is to go get help. And we have tons of resources on this campus to help you. Some of them that I might mention are the Learning and Academic Resources Center is great to provide a lot of of help in terms of how to be successful as a college student, right? The Writing Center is another great example, because one of the fun things you get to find out when you get to college is the way they taught you how to write in high school is not going to be how the faculty expect you to write when you get to college. So it's a really good resource to get connected to. But in general, there are tons of resources on this campus to help you be successful. And one of the things I have found is that the really successful students, they go and get the help before they think they need it. And then the struggles are not so difficult, right? Every student's going to face some challenges when they come to college, but they're a lot less of a struggle when they go get help before they think they need it. The third thing that I tell folks to do is to get a degree. Our goal is to get you to that day. You're wearing a cap and gown, you're walking across the stage, you're shaking somebody's hand, and we hand you the most important piece of paper we're going to give you, which is a piece of paper that says on it, we're going to mail you your degree in about 4 to 6 weeks, right? That's the goal, is to get you to that day and that piece of paper. And the reason we say get a degree is we know many of your students are probably going to change their mind about their major. In fact, we expect most of the students who come in with a major declared are going to change their mind. But we also know that over 90% of employers don't care what that major is. They do, however, care that you have a degree. So that's the third thing I always tell students to do, is make sure they get that degree. And the great news is we've got folks whose full-time jobs and they're academic advisors. They're on this campus with one goal in mind, to be this person that's here to help students get connected to those opportunities, to get engaged, to get connected to help. but also help them figure out how to progress down that path to get that degree. So that's what the advisors are going to be here to do. It used to be advisors were just on campus to talk about what classes do you take each term, but really it's changed over the last 20 years, and we're really here to help students figure out who they are, who they want to be, and how they're going to get there. So that's what I would just say in a nutshell. Christine?
Thank you, David. Great advice. And I'm sure there will be some follow-up questions about some of the resources you mentioned. So, and if we don't get to that, we'll go ahead and share that out a little bit later. So I'm very excited to introduce our next presenter. And such an important part of the college experience is housing, right? Where your students going to be spending their time on campus, their first, sometimes their second and third year. And so we have Pechiney Suos, and she is a first generation alumnus of UCI. She graduated in the class of 2019. And after graduation, she now that she's graduated, she works full time for UCI Student Housing and has been the housing tour and outreach coordinator for 5 years. So she has quite a bit of experience, particularly post-COVID when everything has changed quite a bit. So Pechiney, thank you so much for being here, and let's get started.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I do have a little presentation to go over with some few information that'll be helpful for parents and family that I'll go over in a little bit. I forgot to mention that as David and Charlie were talking about like student experience, as Christine had mentioned, I am an alumni from UCI. I was actually a student who started off with one major and then changed my major like after my first year, and like had lots of friends who were also like experimenting with majors and stuff. So kind of like ditto what they say, but I'm here for the housing aspect and information. So I'll go ahead and get my presentation ready for you all. Okay, so let me see if I can put this in presentation mode. Okay, hopefully you can see the presentation. If not, please someone say something. But we'll go ahead and just go over, it's a few slides. Hopefully it won't take too long, but this will be information that'll be helpful for parents and family for the newly admitted freshmen. So first thing I want to mention is something called FERPA. If you're familiar with HIPAA, this is very similar to HIPAA. And so if you're not familiar with HIPAA or just want to know the information about FERPA, what it is, it's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. That's what it stands, but what it stands for FERPA. And basically it's a federal law that prohibits the university from providing student-specific information to anyone other than the student. And so I like to point this out because if you, the parent or a family member, call us at UCI Student Housing trying to get information about your student, unfortunately, we can only give you general information. We will not be able to look up the student record unless the student is with you on the phone, or if you come into the office, we need to speak to the student as well. And same thing with emails. If you ever email Student Housing, we do need the student to be the one that emails us. I also like to point this out because sometimes in the academic years or later in your student's career at UCI, we do get parents who are like, I didn't know about X, Y, and Z. My student never told me. I never received any emails about it. And that is correct. And it's because we only send emails to the students at Student Housing, and we only send it to the student email that we have on record, which typically once they are a current student, it will be their UCI email. But as of now, as a newly admitted student, if they haven't committed to the university yet, or maybe they have, it's going to be their personal email that's on file with the university until their UCI email is activated, which isn't until sometime in the summer. But this is important information to know for at least when you try to contact UCI Student Housing. Please have your student on the line with you, so that way we can try to look at your student record. If your student is not on the line with you, that's totally fine. If you ask general information, we are able to answer general questions. I do also want to point out that living on campus is not required for any student at UCI. This is a common misconception that we get because other universities do require students to live on campus, but at UC Irvine, we do not. We do offer up to 2 years of guaranteed housing to newly admitted freshmen, but there is a process and it's a conditional guarantee where they do need to make sure they meet all required deadlines. So I want to point out that living on campus is not required, and because of that, housing offers and housing assignments are not made on students' proximity to campus. What I mean by this is that if a student is a California resident, an out-of-state student, an international student, all of them are treated equally. They also have to meet all the required deadlines and application processes. Because it's not required for students to live on campus, we don't base housing offers and housing assignments based on where the student lives. I know this is a common misconception that's been going around. We have gotten parents and students who called our office and be like, oh, I heard that since I'm an out-of-state student, I get priority. Unfortunately, not all students are treated equally because it's not required to live on campus at UCI. As well as your student's admission to UCI does not automatically secure their spot in on-campus housing. They do need to do specific steps in order to secure their on-campus housing space. And there is detailed information on our housing website and a video of the step-by-step process. But basically, the student needs to make sure they apply for housing and meet all required deadlines of completing their housing contract offer, completing the housing payments and things like that to secure their space in on-campus housing. And then, as I mentioned before, they're eligible for up to 2 years of guaranteed housing, but this is also a conditional guarantee where they do need to meet all requirements and deadlines to qualify for the first year of guaranteed housing and then the second year of guaranteed housing. A common question we get is like, what's the housing options after the first year? So if the student's eligible for the second year of housing guarantee where they remain eligible, the on-campus housing options that we have are going to be Aurora Vista and the American Campus Community Apartments. If you're curious and want to know some information about that, you want to like get ahead and just look, we do have the information currently available on the housing website of those housing options. So you're more than welcome to check out those communities and see what they have. But as your student's a first year freshman that's coming in, they're only eligible for the resident halls at this time. And then because it's not required for students to live on campus, if your student chooses to not do the second year housing guarantee and live on campus, they're more than welcome to look into off-campus housing. One resource that we provide at UCI Housing is called the Anteater Housing Network. What this is, it's basically a website that's like an online bulletin board where anyone can post a listing on there. So it can vary from a homeowner that has a room to rent that they want to rent out to UCI students, or even apartment companies posting just regular apartments on there, or even another UCI student who has an apartment off campus that's looking for roommates. So housing for non-guaranteed students, this is another common question that we get is how do you get housing and how does that work? So students who are not eligible for guaranteed housing, whether these are students who did not meet all the requirements or missed deadlines that they were stipulated to do, or maybe it's their third year and they've reached their 2-year guarantee housing. They are still able to apply for on-campus housing, but they'd be applying to the housing wait list. So we recommend students who want to live on campus that they apply to all the eligible wait lists that options that they're available for and apply as soon as the wait lists open. And then once again, they are more than welcome to look into off-campus housing. Other than the Anteater Housing Network, students can look at other resources or other alternatives on their own. The Anteater Housing Network is just the only resource that we provide at student housing because it's not limited to that. There's way more. Sometimes it depends if students are looking for outside of Irvine, just the Orange County area, and they're willing to commute a little bit. Sometimes just getting a house to rent. The house types can vary. As I mentioned before, it could be a homeowner that's renting a room, or it could be an actual house in the Orange County area where multiple students can go ahead and rent that house together, apartments and things like that. One thing to note with off-campus housing, they're literally privately owned, so they're not affiliated with the university. So unfortunately at student housing, other than the Anteater Housing Network, we don't have information or oversight for other off-campus housing. So that's something that you can explore on your own if you're curious to see what off-campus housing options there are. We also recommend students to search for housing with friends. Me personally, when I was a student, I actually only lived on campus my freshman year. And then afterwards, I lived off campus with a lot of friends. But at the same time, I don't think a lot of people do it nowadays post-COVID. But pre-COVID, it was like 6 girls cramming into a 2-bedroom apartment. And we were fine with that because it was cheap. And we're like, okay, college life. But everyone's different. And we've noticed like since post-COVID, a lot more students are wanting to live on campus as well. But if you decide to go the alternative of living off campus, it definitely is more helpful when you have a group of friends to live for off-campus housing with, because once again, you can rent out a full house possibly, or rent out a full apartment and have all your friends that you want to live with there. A common question that you might especially if you've already committed to the university, and you've already applied for housing, is when is move-in day? So first year freshmen are only eligible for the resident halls, and the contract start date of the resident halls is Sunday, September 22nd. So if you need to plan for just one day of travel arrangements, you can go ahead and plan for Sunday, September 22nd, as that is the official start date of the contract. However, because it is about 5,000 students moving into the resident halls, we do try to spread out the move-in date into a 3-day period. So from Friday the 20th through Sunday the 22nd. All the buildings will be ready and accessible for move-in by the 22nd, as that's the official start date of the contract. However, there will be some buildings that will be available for move-in earlier. And so students won't get their assignment until early September, unfortunately. And when they get their assignment in early September, that is also when they'll find out their exact move-in date and time, because it'll be dependent on what building they are assigned to and if that building is ready for an earlier move-in. So if you can plan for a weekend, I totally recommend to do a weekend trip in Orange County, explore the area, and just be here for like a 3-day weekend, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But if you can only plan for one day, go ahead and just plan for Sunday, September 22nd as your travel arrangements. And then you also might be wondering what to bring. What the rooms are furnished with is that we provide the bed, mattress, desk, chair, and wardrobe space for each occupant. So other than that being provided by us, it's whatever else you want to bring, basically. Bedding for the bed and mattress, you can do that. Any personal items as well, and things that you think will be helpful for studying and just getting acclimated to your room and things like that. Just one thing to note is that the bedding needs to be a twin extra long size. And then you don't necessarily need to like purchase everything immediately and move here. There are a lot of stores in the area. There's literally Target across the street, so you can always go there. Walmart and IKEA is not that far of a drive, so you can always go there as well. So it's kind of up to you what you want to bring. Definitely bedding might be something you might want to have already. Otherwise, you'll be fine when you move in to just go to the stores and buy stuff. And then lastly is just the housing website. If you have not checked our housing website, I strongly encourage you to check our housing website. We do have a lot of important information and relevant information. Typically, like fun fact is that a lot of the things that we actually email students, typically is things that's posted on the housing website that we tell them like, hey, the application process for your second year guarantee housing is now available. And it's literally just us linking to the website. So a lot of things that we do email your students can be found on the housing website. So that's something that you can actually look on your own and see what stuff is posted on there. So we do have information on how to apply and important dates for all the different student categories. A 360 virtual tour of the resident halls are available. Unfortunately, we do not do any in-person tours anymore. So this virtual tour is the best way to go ahead and see what the insides of the buildings look like. And we do have the housing rates for next academic year posted. The tricky part is that if you go onto our housing website and click on the rates page, it'll first take you to this academic year's rates. So you're going to have to read the top where it says for 2024-25 rates, click here. And if you click on that, it'll take you to next year's rates and you can see what the costs are. And then anytime there's any student housing updates that we think is important for students, we'll go ahead and post on there. For example, when the first year freshman statement of intent to register deadline got pushed from May 1st to May 15th. The housing application deadline for the guarantee also got pushed from May 2nd to May 16th. And we did post that update on the housing website. And then our contact information for student housing is also available there. Our email, our phone number. We are open Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So our contact information is there and available for you to access. So that's pretty much it from me. So I'll go ahead and pass it back off to Christine.
Hi, Pechiney. Thank you so much for sharing all that really useful information. And I think, yes, the housing website is a great resource because there are so many details that you'll want to go through to assess your options. Pechiney, do you happen to know what that initial deadline is for, say, like incoming freshman students to apply for housing?
Yeah, so the housing application guarantee deadline is May 16th. I do want to clarify first, that the housing application, it does not ask for any housing preferences. Because it is not required for students to live on campus, this housing application simply lets us know that your student would like to live on campus. So that's one thing that kind of confuses a lot of students. They're like, it didn't ask me what I want. That is correct. It's just asking you to verify your personal information, such as your name, gender, date of birth, and pay a $20 application fee. This is due by May 16th. And then after May 16th, if your student did meet this guarantee deadline, they are guaranteed to receive a housing contract offer. This housing contract offer will be sent sometime in early June. This is also noted on the website on the important date section. It'll be sent in early June, and this is where the student will complete their preferences and actually secure their space by completing the housing contract and paying a reservation fee that reserves their on-campus housing space. So also, I know there are some people who are like still iffy with financial aid and stuff. They don't know they want to come here. So if you want to be eligible for a guaranteed contract offer to secure your space, and you know your student wants to come here, but they're not sure if they want to back out or not, submit the housing application by May 16th. And then when you get the contract offer in early June, that is when you can decide to forfeit it and not live on campus. So.
Thank you. Those are great guidelines and things to share with families. And I'm so glad that you mentioned FERPA, because it's not a term that everybody's really familiar with. And so right now, between now and the time that your student starts in fall, and probably even after that, you'll hear a reminder about that and the fact that your student will be responsible for checking their email and their portals and staying on top of all of those deadlines that they need to meet, whether it be like a financial piece or some other application. So reinforce that, or empower your students to do their own research, and sometimes even just sit there with them and go through the process with them so that they feel comfortable with it. Because like Pechiney said, unless you have your student with you and their student ID, if you're asking housing for any information, they can provide you with general information, but nothing specific to your student. And that goes for a lot of the areas on campus. So just something to remember. It can be a little bit of an adjustment for some families, but I think once you get the hang of it, you and your student will, be able to communicate and keep each other updated on those deadlines. So speaking of the great work that parents do with their students in terms of getting them prepared, we've invited 3 families to be part of our parent panel. And we're going to go ahead and get started with that. So we have families from Illinois, from Texas, and from Washington. Wanted to give you a different perspective from all of these different regions and, students from different disciplines, things like that. Call upon Clinton and Dinah Wolf from Illinois. They're our co-chairs for the Parent Executive Board, something that we're very proud of on campus. This is our philanthropic arm of parent and family engagement, and they do an amazing job of not only stressing the importance of philanthropy on campus, but also really helping us inform us of what students need and what families need ongoing. And considering they're from out of state, they have a lot of great information to share with us. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Clinton and Dinah. Provided you with some, initial questions so you can introduce yourself, but go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Christine. Welcome everyone, and congratulations again. Like everyone had said here, we're super excited that you guys are here tonight. My name is Dinah Wolf, and my husband,
Clinton.
and we have a son we actually have twins, but our son is the one who goes to UCI. He's a junior in electrical engineering.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to give out a couple of tips out here for you. And so I think a couple things. One, just building off of the housing thing. Definitely put some thought into your selection around that, because it does kind of shape the social life, or has a big impact on their social life. So definitely, put some thought into it, because they do seem to be different with that. And then the other thing I was just going to be practical is that, since you're out of state, trying to get back and forth, with flights and all that stuff, especially like Thanksgiving, book it early and, use your miles if you have, because, the holidays can be tricky. Stuff. Thanksgiving's the one with the least flexibility.
And I guess the other question there was that we had is, what's one thing that we learned about our students' first year? There's a tremendous amount of growth that happens in that first year, and just trusting that what they're going to experience, they're going to get through it. One thing for us being from Chicago is the safety. And it truly has been very, very safe for Bryce, whether he's at the dorms on campus or off campus. He's thankfully has never had, an incident. He's gone to work out at the gym, has even left his wallet in the cubby, which we were like, what? His wallet went missing after the workout. And we are happy to say that the wallet was returned within a couple days. So he's, aside from that, he really truly is safe. It's just, it's so comforting, especially 3,000 miles away. We just feel like he's just having a great time. And and with every, one other quick thing is just that, if there's a question that comes up, that there's always some sort of assistance or help. And this is a tremendous group that we have with us tonight. Thank you, Christine.
That's great. It's always nice hearing from you, and I'm sure as we go through the Q&A, you'll have some other nuggets of wisdom to kind of share with the parents. So thank you for those, those insights that you shared with us originally. I'm going to go ahead and move over to Krista Evans out of Texas.
Hello.
And Krista, you're an alumna of UCI, is that correct?
I am kind of the double duo. I'm an alumni from class of 1990, and I also have a sophomore who's currently attending UC Irvine. So maybe it was too much pushing him around Aldridge Park in his stroller that it sunk in. I have to say a little shout out to David. You are absolutely correct. My hardest class at UC Irvine was my writing class, and I was a physics major. So absolutely. Anyway, to get back to it, we live in Dallas now. And so Basel is obviously in California as a sophomore. I like to say the biggest bridge I have to compare the past with the present is last semester, Basel took a class, the same class I took when I was a student at UC Irvine, given the same time Monday night from 7 to 10 by the same teacher. So not everything changes, I guess. Some things change. There's a lot of new buildings. The inner circle of Aldridge Park now has an outer circle. He's in the school of Paul Mirage Business School. That was not there when I was there, as were any of the buildings on that side of campus. But I think I'm a great resource, like I said, for the past information and the present information. Who knows about the future, but I'm so excited for everyone to be here. Thank you, Christine, so much for inviting me.
Thank you. We're very pleased to have you with us. And I should also note that if anybody here on the webinar is, from Texas or from Illinois, you may have seen Krista or Dinah and Clinton at your local welcome event that Charlie and his group have hosted. So these may not be new faces to you, and we'll keep you involved so that they're much more familiar as your student enters UCI. And third, but certainly not least, is Sophie Young, and she is from Washington, just outside of Seattle, I believe. So really happy to have her on board. And if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Yeah, of course, I'd love to. Well, hello everyone, and thank you, Christine, and everyone else. It's good to see so many families here. We're all part of this UCI community. My name is Sophie Young. I live in Bellevue, Washington. My son goes to UCI. His name is Aiden Chen, and he's a freshman at the electrical engineering department. So as far as the tips for out-of-state families, and I think I echo Clinton that housing is a big part. Definitely put some thinking into it. What's the best for your student? So from our experience, Aiden was actually able to find 3 other boys from the same high school. So they're now sharing one dorm at the Mesa Court. I would say it's overall a positive experience. And it does help to help with some of the homesickness, because like the 4 kids are basically they kind of grew up together. So it's kind of nice that they could have some experience and share a room, share their a very important part of their life journey together. So I think that would be a good idea. If your kids are in the same situation and can find other kids that they already know that can share a dorm, I think that would be a good idea. The things we learned from the first year, I would say, like, I consider myself a fresh parent still, but I would say that just there are so many resources at UCI, so many available to the students and parents. So definitely, I would encourage everyone to reach out and find opportunities to go to the campus, to see the school, see the community. And for me, I would say that joining the PEP really is a very positive experience. I remember Dinah called me and we started to talk, and I was so happy because I was in the same situation as the parents here today. It's excited, but at the same time, kind of not sure what to expect. So having someone who's experienced that to share that with you is definitely a very, very encouraging moment for me. So I would encourage the families here to make a trip to Irvine if you can. Find opportunities to participate in the community. There are many events that you can join, either in person or online, but engage as much as you can. I think you'll find it rewarding to be able to be part of the journey together with your students. And overall, this UCI school experience is just so wonderful that, yeah, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Yeah. Thank you, Christine.
Absolutely happy to have you speak and to share, some positive reinforcement with the families about your experience. We did get some initial questions before the webinar started, and I'm kind of curious, maybe throughout the panel, if you can answer in terms of what to bring to housing. Were there any surprises for you? Anything that you had wished that your student brought, or was like too much? I see Dinah unmuting right now.
I think the fan was definitely an important one because it gets pretty warm. With the sunshine, 300 days out of the year, it gets pretty warm, especially with 4 young adult men in a room. So that was great. Oh gosh, we packed all this between the ibuprofen, just the medication stuff. And truly, even Bryce ended up getting COVID at the end of his freshman year. None of that stuff was used. I have to say that it's incredible that UCI had such an incredible way of handling the situation with transportation and isolating them. And, their student health center is incredible. So I'd say that was probably the too much. What do you think? Is that, yeah?
That, and you don't need the Costco size.
Well, I think I have something I can share. I think at the beginning I was kind of nervous about, oh, should we bring this and that? And eventually we actually find out that you can actually just order from Amazon and ship it to their dorm. So just don't worry. If you do miss something, you can always get it from Amazon. It's so convenient. Yeah.
With that reference to shipping to the dorm, Pechiney, do you have any feedback as a staff member? How does this work? How do students access their packages? Do you get an influx at certain times of year?
Yes, I do want to. There's a good idea to get things shipped out. However, one thing to note is that in the resident hall, it's 5,000 students living there, and our staff are not able to process 5,000 packages times however much things you order in that weekend. So typically, in early September, we'll post on the housing website information of like a list of what to bring. It's a very basic list though, so it's not as extensive because in the end of the day, it's kind of up to you what you want to bring. But there's also information about mailing. There is a specific date that you can start shipping out packages and mail to your assigned room with your, because you'll get your mailing address, or your student will get their mailing address and their assignment email in early September. But in the move-in page that we'll have on the housing website, it'll have a specific date that you're allowed to start shipping, or that the community will start accepting packages. And so even if, let's say, for example, move-in September 22nd is the official start date of the contract, let's say September 19th, you're allowed to, like, we will accept the packages that get delivered on September 19th. Depending how many packages there are and the staffing that we have staff that needs to work the move-in weekend, and we don't have the staff to go ahead and process the packages. One thing with the packages also is that your student is not able to just come and show up to the mailroom and be like, hey, I got an Amazon order that said it arrived, give it to me. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. They, once again, get hundreds and hundreds of packages a day that they are going to have to process to confirm that it is a current resident that is moving in or currently living there. And then you'll get an email, your student will get an email from their housing community saying, hey, you have a package ready for pickup. So sending packages to your student's housing unit prior to move-in, or by that weekend that we tell you, you can start sending things. If it's something you need immediately, probably not the best plan. There is, across the street at the University Town Center, there is an Amazon place there. So you can try to do pickup there. There's also some Amazon mailbox or lockers that are in the housing communities, but it's not much. It's still not much availability. So in the end of the day, pick and choose what you want to deliver for move-in weekend versus what you want to just go purchase on your own when you guys come out here. Because unfortunately, just because of staffing and being busy with the actual move-in process, your students' packages will probably not be available until, like, I would dare say maybe a week into living there, depending on how much packages they have.
Christine, can I also add to what Pechiney said? I think that's actually, that's great advice. One thing that really helped us was that we actually were able to order online and pick it up. So when our flight came in, we could pick it up there. The other thing too is if you're in a hotel, you can call the front desk and they accept packages. I don't know if it's 5,000 packages, but they do accept packages. But yeah, so we were able to, just have a couple luggages, but be able to kind of do the errands.
That's great. And I think before we move on to kind of some of the academic questions, because we do have some other pieces that I think that David may be able to help, explore for us. More on housing, Pechiney. Are you familiar with the meal plans, and what can you say, like what can you speak to what students normally do?
Yeah, so one thing to note before I go into describing the meal plans, As I mentioned before in my little presentation I had, we do have the housing rates available on the housing website for next academic year. So if you have not looked at the rates to kind of get an idea of that, you'll see if you were to look now, for example, if you were to click on like a single room and see what the price is, you'll notice that there's a chart that shows a different pricing depending on meal plan. So technically the rule of thumb at the end of the day is the more people to a room, the cheaper it is, the lower like the meal plan, the cheaper it is. We do have also a sectioned off portion on the housing website where you can see what the actual price of the room is without the meal plan and what the meal plan differences are. I recommend looking at that because the meal plan differences in general of the actual meal plans is not that big of a difference in price. But when you look at it, including the housing rate, it's like, oh, that's a big jump. When in actuality, if you look at the meal plan itself without the housing rate included, it's not that big of a difference. So if you're not familiar with the dining commons in the resident halls, we have one in both communities, Mesa Court and Middle Earth. It does not matter where your student lives, they are able to access either dining commons. In addition to that, the meal plan or the meal menu will be different as well. So let's say you live in Middle Earth and you look at the menu for Brandywine for dinner and you don't like what they're serving, the menu at Mesa Court's Dining Common, the Anteater will have a different menu. So the 3 meal plans that we have 100 and I believe it's 110 meal plans, and then the 5-day all access meal plan and the 7-day all access meal plan. To give it another idea about the dining commons, how the dining commons work, it's kind of like an all-you-can-eat buffet style. All they count is your initial entry into the dining commons, and you're able to sit there for as long as allowed. Obviously, it depends if they're closing and cleaning or whatever, but all that count is your initial entry into the dining common, and each time you enter, it counts the entry. So the 110 meal plans is literally 110 entries per quarter. And so that's there's technically 10 weeks in a quarter, including finals week, so it's 11. But if you include just the 10, it's about 10 meals a week, depending how often your student goes. And then the second meal plan that I mentioned is the 5-day all access meal plan. The 5-day all access meal plan is unlimited access from Monday through Friday. It does not work on the weekends. So this is all out of state people, but sometimes we have California residents who are like, oh, I'm gonna go home every weekend, or I'm gonna buy food on the weekend. No, you will be going to the dining commons on the weekend. You're gonna be rolling out of bed and like, I'm just gonna go there. I don't wanna go make plans and go out to brunch outside. More often than not, you will be using the dining commons on the weekends. And so the very last meal plan option is the 7-day all access meal plan. And kind of related to the 5-day, it's unlimited access all 7 days a week as long as the dining commons are open. And so that's the differences between the 3 meal plans. And the end of the day, I honestly recommend doing the 7-day meal plan, or if you want to like be a little, like not as expensive, the 110 meal plan. But your students first, especially the first few weeks, eating at the dining commons is more of like a social environment. As I mentioned before, I'm an alumni. And so literally my freshman year, there were times where my friends had already ate and I was going and I didn't want to go alone. And so another person would go with me. They're like, oh, I'll just come and sit with you and hang out with you. Or other people, like I would do the same with other groups where it was like a group of people and I'm like, oh, I want to hang out with everyone, so I'll just go in too. Or it could be also like you're just grabbing a banana, like you just want to go grab a banana, so just one entry there. So personally, the 7-day meal plan is pretty much the better option, but I understand with the finances of the different pricing, that is something to look into. But once again, look at the meal plan details section on the housing rates page, and you'll see that the rate differences between the meal plans is not that big of a difference between the 3. So hopefully that kind of helped clarify the 3 different meal plans.
No, that's great. And thank you for clarifying for out-of-state families, what that might look like in reality for their student, particularly on the weekends. So yeah, they have a lot of information, and I'm sure, with the website that I've shared from housing, I think there's a link to dining there as well, so that parents can go in and do their own research with their students. And then kind of academic opportunities and other ways for students to expand their experience at UC Irvine. David, one of the questions that we had was around research, undergraduate research, right? So a big part of, student success revolves around that. Do you know, is that process, is it difficult to get into a research project? Are there times of the year when you would apply, or is it kind of like run throughout the academic year?
Yeah, I would say, if every student that attends UCI wanted to get into research, we wouldn't have enough space. But not every student does, right? So there's quite a few that don't. What that does mean is that there's plenty of availability, right? It does mean that you might occasionally, if there's a faculty member that's doing research that everybody wants to do, you might have to ask more than one faculty member to find an opportunity. But it happens throughout the year. And one of the great things about the UROP office, the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program office, is they help students get connected. They help them find those kinds of opportunities, but they also will help a student if they have a research question of their own in mind, help them find a faculty sponsor so that they can actually do their own research project with the help of a faculty member. So they can actually create their own opportunities as well if they don't find something in a lab that's of interest to them. Additionally, there are funding opportunities where you can get a stipend to cover some costs of some things, both throughout each of the quarters of the academic year, but also in the summer. And that's a great way for students to also essentially imagine you could have your student working in a research opportunity over the course of a summer and actually be getting paid as though that's their summer job to do that work, right? So there's definitely funding opportunities too to do that. The main thing I tell students is, one, if there's a faculty member you found online in the department site that's doing something you're interested in, immediately go talk to them. And two, get connected with the UROP office because they're going to help make sure that you're able to maximize that experience the best you can.
Great. I think that's really helpful. I mean, I know, we're not quite in the fall quarter just yet, but it's good to kind of explore these ideas and what your student may want to dive into. I know there were some other questions about social life, and then student health and wellness. So I'll go and make a plug really quick for our Center for Student Health and Wellness, which has been a great partner for us on campus. And we do have a video recording of something that we did earlier with them. I believe it was the end of March. So when I'm speaking, from our team, we'll make sure that you have a link to that in the follow-up email that we send out. So that's something that you can review and kind of hear firsthand from that team about how they help students socialize. But I'd also like to hear from a parent. So Krista, in terms of Basel getting integrated into UCI and finding his social group.
Okay, yeah, thank you for calling on me. There's actually two areas I'd like to address. One is quickly about the medical, if I could do that first, if that's all right. We had a different situation where we didn't have the medical benefits come through UCI. They came through my husband's employer. And it's not a case, being out of state, there's more to consider when it comes to your child being so far away from home. Basel was sick his freshman year. He's on the sailing team, and he was sick while he was in Hawaii and had to come home early, and ended up with mono and then strep and a whole bunch of things, and ended up at 2 local emergency rooms with friends having taken him because he didn't have a car freshman year. The medical facilities are wonderful, and UCI was wonderful. You don't get a pass, but some kind of grace in terms of how your classes are dealt with catch-up time. And we got a call 2 months ago in the middle of the night saying, "Hey, Mom, my stomach hurts." And I did that typical helicopter mom thing, jump up and down. And he said, "I can't." We said, "Go to the emergency room." We hopped on a 6:45 a.m. flight out of Dallas and caught him just in time to go into emergency surgery and have his appendix out. So the hospitals in the area are phenomenal. He was at Newport Hogue Hospital. The robot actually took his appendix out, but the surgeon was a graduate of UCI, as well as the anesthesiologist was also a graduate of UCI. And when it came time to getting back into the mode of classes, He'd already used up his hall pass, so he basically had to ask for another hall pass. And they said, "What's up with your health here, Basil, that you need to go at this again?" But he had grace from his teachers, were all very understanding. He had checkups at the health center. There's a bus that goes around the ring in campus that basically took him to the doorstop of his classes because he wasn't able to bend. He used disabled student services to give him rides between classes. So there's a lot of kind of avenues to pull from. So that's on the health front. I don't know if you want me to use up some more time and talk about the social too, if you wouldn't mind me interjecting that quickly, Christine.
No, I'm happy to hear about that because that's an important piece for parents. So let's go.
Yeah,
ahead.
and obviously, if your student's been admitted to UCI, they're an amazing, phenomenal kid anyway. So they are used to being involved in activities in high school, and Basil was certainly involved in high school, but he's an only child. So he wasn't too excited about the issue of sharing a bathroom with other kids sharing a room at all. But I have to say he's absolutely blossomed. He is president of his fraternity this year. He's on the sailing team, like I said. He started a golf club because he played 4 years varsity golf in high school, but is not D1 qualified. So now it's become a social activity. He has an internship at a studio off campus. He works at the Brent Event Center, which is the basketball arena, and they do concerts there. That's also on campus. And he's going to be spending his summer session at London School of Economics through UCI as well. So for somebody that's an only child that was on the social side, I have to say a little bit challenged. He didn't go to prom. He didn't do any of that stuff that went anywhere near the opposite sex. And that's completely blossomed for him. We couldn't be I more excited, and I credit UCI because I obviously couldn't do it.
Thank you so much, Krista. I'm glad that Basil found, some people on campus and kind of grew and blossomed in that direction. I'm really sorry to hear about his early experience with his health, but those are some of the things that happen, right? Just catch us by surprise.
Well, I don't think it's can it happen, it's when will it happen. I mean, that surgeon said he had 6 more appendixes to take out that day. So it's that age gap of between 18 and 20, whatever. So you have to kind of plan for those things. And if you can't plan for them, they're in a good spot. Irvine's in a good spot. Even if you're not on campus, the surrounding area is wonderful.
Excellent. That's great to hear. And I did put in the chat the link for Disability Services Center. This is something that's available to a number of students. So it's not necessarily just dealing with students who are coming in with kind of chronic or longer term, health concerns that they have. But if your student has an emergency, you say like they have to have their appendix taken out or they have some other kind of thing that comes up, that center is really helpful in guiding students on how to get those accommodations for those classes. They receive, I think last year the stat was something like 2,500 or maybe even 3,000 requests from students. So they deal with these things all day, every day. The other thing that I was trying to put in the chat was just a note about scholarships, because I know that's also very top of mind for parents. So I'll go ahead and re-enter that. I'm not sure if there was a problem there with work. Anyway, I'll do that at the end. Wow, things have moved so quickly. We, completed that hour just in a flash and probably didn't address, all of the questions that everybody has here, but really glad that we had the opportunity to connect with you, to answer some of those questions and introduce you to some of the faces that you'll see on campus. I think, Marvel, if you want to go ahead and pull up our next slide, I can kind of talk about, I don't know if we're talking about the services or okay. So before we get into the slide about some of the services, and you'll want to take, a screenshot of that just so you have that information. But it's also something that we'll send out in our follow-up email. This right here is the prize opportunity that you've been waiting for. So this design here was made especially for UC Irvine, and it highlights landmarks and different things that are unique to UC Irvine. It is the softest, most wonderfully plush blanket that you could you could have. I can't sell it enough. But you can be entered to win this blanket if you use this QR code and fill out the so you don't need to do it again. So we'll just go ahead and go off of what we have up through tomorrow at 5 p.m. and then we will pick a name at random from those who attended this webinar to send out, you know, a special gift in recognition of your participation. So very grateful for your time and for your involvement. Marvel, I don't know if you want to go ahead and share the next slide. All right, here. So here are some helpful hints or helpful links based on some of the initial questions that we got through our registration form. So admissions, advising, housing, and financial aid. I know there were a lot of questions around financial aid that we weren't able to get to here. And that's kind of one of those areas where sometimes things are very like personal, you know, individual situations where you have some more in-depth questions that you want to ask. That financial aid website has a video, and I'm not quite sure here. Let me go ahead and find. Yep, it's that exact website. So if you use that website down there at the bottom, there's a video. It's a podcast that was created sometime earlier this year that shares a little bit more about how things have changed this year with some delays in the FAFSA and, you know, how you can reach out as parents and with your student and gain some additional information about financial aid. Ah, perfect. Thank you for sharing that, Charlie. So I'll go ahead and share that. Where's the scholarship form here? I lost it. We'll go ahead and share that in the outgoing message. There are also a number of different resources that we'd love to share with you. So one way that you can continue to stay informed is by attending these webinars. We also have this great event. Marvel, if you want to switch to the next slide, is our Anteater Family Weekend. So this is a great time for you to come to campus. You're dropping lots of emotions, I'm sure, as you're, you know, going through that process. And you may find that your student is a little homesick or would like you to bring some things, or maybe you just miss them so terribly you want to come give them a hug. We have this great program that we do each year in the fall. Last year, we had over 1,000 registrants and we were able to accommodate just over, I think, 750 attendees, but we're looking to enhance that and improvement and have an early bird window for our out-of-state parents so you can make those plans to, you know, get a hotel room and some of the other things that you may want to do around that. But please save this date. Our early bird registration will open at a discounted rate in August. So keep your eyes and ears peeled out for that. One way you can stay informed is by following us on Facebook or Instagram. And you can also fill out the parent information. Our newsletter. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out to parents where you can stay informed about, you know, what's happening across campus, not just within parent programs. And we do our best to also share important deadlines with you so that you can then go to your student and say, hey, have you checked your portal? Have you noticed that, you know, it might be, you know, time for a tuition payment or, you know, something else like that. Just to kind of, you know, in that first year, help each other keep on track. So that's the best advice I have to share as a staff member. But I am so grateful for the speakers that we had today, the experts in their area, for Pechiney Suos representing housing, David Spight representing advising, and Charlie, thank you so much for continuing the flow of information with the admissions team. So grateful for our parents, Clinton and Dinah Wolf. our parent executive board co-chairs. Krista Evans, our alumna, and her husband David couldn't join us today, but he's also wonderful. And Sophie Young, who's also part of the parent executive board and has a freshman. So we're all going to be learning a little bit more together, but so glad that you could make it tonight. And thank you for staying a few minutes after. We will share this video with you, and we're looking forward to seeing you on campus. Thank you and all, and have a great night.